dominated by this liquidity going higher, all these blue areas in these downticks. And then when we see that reversal, all of a sudden, all these pink moves to the upside, reversing the market to the downside at that point. It's beautiful. The color coordination of seeing price trading down into liquidity is quite a powerful visual image for a lot of people to get their head around. As Rick was saying, it works well with the way Rick sees things. You know, seeing the line dropping and then seeing these pink lines above the chart, Rick, that can be quite powerful for a lot of people. Seeing the blue, the candles rising and then seeing these blue pins in these areas, that can be quite a powerful signal indicator for people. Yet also, when you see the line dropping and you see pink appearing at the top edges, you go, okay, alrighty, I've only got one trade I can do, and that's a sell trade based on order flow. Let's see if I like it. Let's see if I like that as a possible trade. If I look at the value, the alphas, and then if you like it according to the alphas, you can see what's happening right now. The value, the line's dropping again, and you can see the pink lines forming. If you like that against the alphas, you say, well, you know what? I think this is a better sell than a buy. I'm going to start working into that as a trade narrative. You know, and it doesn't mean it's this trade or that trade, but obviously when you look at that, you've got to try and make that decision at this point, and that's quite a tough decision to make. The alphas aren't exactly kicking up. The alphas aren't exactly kicking off for the big sell-off here, so you've got to be really, really cautious with this. It looks like a far better buy trade, but that's not what the liquidity is showing at the moment. So what do you do? What do you do, Rick? If the liquidity says sell and the alpha say buy, what do you do? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. You go have a coffee break, you stand up, you stretch out, and you say, well, you know, when you guys can make up your mind what you want to do, give me a shout, and I'll get ready to trade again. You know what I mean? So the difference between this pullback here and this pullback, where the values were all diverging into the highs, and at the same time of those values diverging into the highs, with the liquidity order book selling, and then we had all that liquidity coming in short behind that, and you say, well, you know what, this is an absolute genius opportunity for me to work into as a seller in here, and down she goes. That's the trade. That's the one. That's your ticket. That's your ticket. That's your ticket to success right there, isn't it? And then the sell-off makes you a few ticks, makes you a bit of money, and you say, okay, alrighty. All the elements in line, I want to take a bit of business based on that narrative, right? So we're getting closer to the perfect package of news and information that really works for you guys in terms of this indicator section. Now, the only thing that we then add to this whole mix is obviously, process. Once you know that it's a sell trade, how are you going to trade it? And this was a question that Michael was asking this morning about, about how to trade at certain points. You know, the idea of, do you put your stops in at break even too much? Are you finding that you scratch a lot of trades and not make any money? Or do you find that you take your profits too soon? Or, you know, everybody's got a problem. Everybody's got a different way of trading these things. But if the way that you're currently trading it isn't working, then you've obviously got to look at it and say, well, I need to do something better. I need to fix this. What is it that you need to fix? How are you going to fix it? And that's when you go back to your charts and start looking again, isn't it? You start looking back at those stories and say, well, I can fix it by doing this, or this. And you can start trying different ideas. We'll touch on some of those in Classroom before we finish off this week on equities. Next week on oil, we'll be doing oil and gold. So next week is commodities, oil and gold. We'll obviously be looking at COT. We'll be looking at the idea of inflation, building up an idea of what inflation is. We'll be looking at this introduction to the concept of inflation, inflation as a real yield narrative, so that you guys can start to understand the curve before we get started in the bond markets. Well, do you remember, Rick, I mentioned that we had six, we had over 100 lots on oil longs. Remember I mentioned that? You might recall, guys, that I told you we had over 100 lots long on oil. And I was taking some profits into that trade. Well, this is what's happened to that trade since then. Look, it's went a full $1,000 to the upside. $1,000 a contract. We were in over 100. We had about 150 contracts in total into this bottom edge here. And we took out about 50 of the contracts in that phase. And we've just been stripping out some of the trade as we went higher here. So we've made way over $100,000 on oil so far in that move, which is pretty good, isn't it? Pretty good for the bank. So that'll be a nice little bonus check for me. That'll be a nice little bonus check. I'm happy with that one. It's not often you hear me talking about putting the big numbers up. I mean, it's usually bonds when we talk about the big numbers, but on this occasion, it was a good oil trade. So I thought, you know what? Let's get it done. And remember, guys, it's not about a price here. It's not about one price. We basically buy every price in here, and we end up with an average price for all our trade. You know, so there's loads of buys in here, loads of buys, just working bids, working bids, working bids, working bids. And then when it marks up, we start taking some profits. We take profits. We wait, wait, wait. Oh, good, bullish value. We're letting it go. We're just letting it go. Because we've taken profits in here. We just are letting, if it dropped down, I would have bought some more back into this. If the price had dropped back down again into this area, if we started to see this price trading off like this, I'd have been delighted to have taken advantage of that, but it never did it. So we just left the station with what we had on board already. And it's now ridden massively up to the 52.70s, which is now a full $1,000. And we know what happens at $1,000, guys. You know there's going to be a wad of profit taking up here. So it's time to book some of that beautiful. Time to book some of that beautiful, guys. Stunning trade. What happened to my long footsie trade? Well, that did pretty good. Thank you very much for asking. This is what happened. We had bought it earlier. We'd bought into the bottom edge here, but we lost the value completely. So we ended up just scratching out at zero. So we'd got a relatively good trade initially. I thought this was looking relatively reasonable. It was prior swing low, and we'd got a good response to it, but we'd obviously lost value against it quite easily to recognize that we lost value. We regained value here. I took another swing at it, and guess what happened to my trade, guys? I scratched out. You know, it doesn't always work for the banks. You know, so we scratched out when we lost the value. And we just waited. The value's dropping down behind us. And then what happened? The value started to improve. The change started to come into the markets. I got a lower price, and I started to buy lots of footsie into this break lower here. The value looks really good. It starts moving. We start seeing a little bit of a drop-off in value. So what do? I take profits. Again, take profits. A little bit of money in the bank account. I don't take all my profits. Because a short-term drop in value doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to turn straight back around and go back up again. And obviously on this occasion, the price dilly-dallied about for a while and then managed eventually to explode north. And when it explodes north, my next trade is right here. What is that trade right there, guys? Buying the pound at 1:30. I already told you about the buy on the pound at 1:30. I shouted it out for you guys. Anybody remember I drew that box on live in the charts? We talked about it. We said that we're buying back into the pound for that trade. And the pound has now went from 35s up to a high price of 70s. So it's not a trade that you guys didn't know about. We told you about it. And the upshot from that trade has just been absolutely beautiful, right into the top edge. Another outstanding trade, another outstanding bit of business for us, guys. Beautiful. The short gilts did well. I don't know if anybody took it, but the short gilts had a brilliant move down. We are now out of that trade. We are out of the short gilt trade. Fantastic profits. Thank you very much. Almost good enough for our reversal, but unfortunately on this occasion we just 3 o'clock into a bottom edge. I didn't reverse it. I wish I did because it went up, but anyway. So we were short top edge gilts. You can see a beautiful top edge forming up here. If I'm going to sell gilts, that's going to be a long pound trade. And when the gilts collapse like this, you're starting to think to yourself, what the hell? Why is the pound not going up? Anyway, as we come down into the bottom edge, gilts are now exposed. And at that stage, obviously, I'm going to start Xing my pound into the top edge. Xing my pound into the top edge at that stage. And that's the current trade on the pound up here. That exit in the pound is exactly what we're seeing in this bottom edge in here. So we started to exit out as the pound went into that last leg higher. And that's the outcome. That's a beautiful little cheeky outcome from that that bit of business. Yeah, it's just pounds, gilts, and FTSE, Andy. Put the three of those together, and you've got a massive opportunity to trade something. Sometimes one of them's lagging, sometimes one of the other ones getting added in and pulled away at times, and it just leaves sometimes just one of these three that's a little bit exposed, and you can trade this as 1 from 3 type narrative. It's a beautiful 1 from 3. Gene, did you stick around for that 37? I saw you sold the 37s. Did you stick around with it? Were you able to hold the whole duration? Because you should be trying to book into the bottom edges, I would imagine, just now. This looks pretty good at 28s. You know, it looks quite good at the moment for a little bit of a turn. We've seen a few things developing down here that's starting to turn the probabilities against us a little bit on these downticks. So just a little bit of profit, I think, Gene, just a little bit of profit just now, because there might be a buy for me coming up on this, bearing in mind that we've just traded all the way back into the cash open price. So there's going to be a lot of noise in here. There's going to be a lot of spookiness. There's going to be a lot of games developing down at this price point. So you can see that we've seen a lot of selling. There's a lot of selling rolling this price down a little bit here. And there seems to still be selling coming in just now. So I'm not going to close off the position, that's for sure. The yellow line at the bottom, by the way, is Max, in case you're wondering what Max was doing during all this process. You can see Max was actually selling the top edge up here. It was the only indicator, actually, that was way ahead of the rest of them. You can see Max was heavy short coming into these higher highs. So Max was leading the charge. Well, you can see Max is still very short at the bottom edge just now. So you can start to recognize some of that element. You know, it's got good value, but it's certainly not a buy trade for me just yet. You know, we've just taken another bit of profit on that very, very large volume just there. And we're quite happy to start now working off those profits at the moment. Good trade. I'm tooting right. Great trade. So you can see Max never went bullish for the whole move higher here. Never once went higher and stayed sell side, and especially on this top edge test here was an absolute genius opportunity to get short against a selling Max in the background. So that was nice.